Whoa, for real? Okay, so somebody I recognize is back on the line.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
But actually, Steve has been waiting longer. Steve is calling from Wisconsin. Hello?
Hi,
How are you?
I'm here. All right, thanks. Okay,
Quick, before you start, quick question. Did you hear the last call?
I tried not to. 'Cause I was, not that I'm saying the guy is wrong. I didn't really reason it out. I have my own things on my mind.
Okay.
I don't find conspiracies as far fetched as a lot of people.
Okay.
I say as long as there's evil,
Right.
greedy, selfish, conniving, slimy people, you're going to have conspiracies. The FBI will tell
True.
you that every day. So if
Do
you
you
deny a
do you
conspiracy-
find it plausible that God personally told that guy that Pearl Harbor wasn't attacked
No,
by the Japanese?
no.
Okay, just getting
No,
that out of the way.
I'm a very devout Christian, but I don't think there's any holy inspired people today. I think that the last holy inspired people died 2,000 years ago,
Okay.
and the only thing we have now that they did not have at the time is we have the full counsel of God, which is the Old and New Testament, which I call all 66 books. So that's our holy inspiration today. I'm not holy inspired. He's not holy inspired. That doesn't mean that God can and won't do something, but I think it's unlikely. I think you have to judge it by its merits. Did you get my message? I gave the guy a message before I actually came on.
I only see a couple of sentences, and mainly it sounds like you're a Christian author and you want to let us know that the Bible is true, which you've just said. So go on.
My message is the Bible is true. It's what you've heard and assumed about it that is not.
Okay.
Now,
I've read it. Does that make a difference?
I'm getting to that. I chose the word assumed very carefully because most of the time when we read things with what we've heard. And I've had a very unique experience, if you'll allow me to share it. And I've learned that you have to dig for the truth. You don't surface read. That's assuming. Now, you've heard the expression, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still, right?
Sure.
Okay, well, a lot of people don't want to believe the Bible's true. And some people, what they've heard, I can kind of understand why they don't think the Bible is true. But, I'm a critical thinker. And the Bible tells me something quite contrary to what I hear being spouted by a lot of atheists and agnostics. It says to prove all things, 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Then the very center of the Bible tells me not to believe men. It says better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. And what that means to me is that I'm not supposed to believe my preacher. I'm not supposed to believe you. I'm not supposed to just believe a scientist. I'm supposed to dig for the truth. And that means getting your hands dirty.
Okay.
That means spending time. That means I don't spend all my time on sports and cleaning my yard. And, I dig for truth quite often. I want to be accounted worthy. I don't just assume things. I dig for them. When I'm wrong, I confess it. A quick story.
So, just checking. How was the Bible written?
The Bible was written by holy, inspired men. Now you have to ask yourself, what does holy inspired mean? Does that mean every single word is right? No, there's translations are not wholly inspired for one thing. I say wholly inspired is not, what's the word I use? It's not like kinetic, no, that's not the right word. Can't think right now. But anyway, wholly inspired is every time you hear the word, the Lord saith, for instance. Now, does that mean that everything in the Bible is absolutely correct every time? No, because there's men that interject. There's men that say things that are false, like the Pharisees that Jesus called metaphorically the serpents.
So okay. So
isn't going to be true.
You've said a few times that there haven't been any people who were wholly inspired in the last 2,000 years, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, suppose for the sake of argument, I was a person who thought that maybe there are even wholly inspired people walking around today. Hypothetically, because I don't, I promise. But suppose I believed that, and I'm listening to you, you are also a fallible person who isn't wholly inspired, and you're telling me with a lot of confidence that nobody is wholly inspired today. How do I know you're right?
Well, I take things from a very simple perspective. Now,
well, I don't know if that's a reason to think you're right.
No, I'm not done. If the Bible contradicts itself, then I have real problems, especially when I hear it, "Thus saith the Lord." Now, I just got off the internet after work, and some guy was showing me some things, and he led me to a site that allegedly has 101 contradictions or something in the Bible. Mm-hmm. I proved the first 4 wrong. He counted on the others to show him. He just believed them. He didn't do any digging himself. You know, God's looking for inquiring minds, people that think for themselves. I proved the first 4 wrong. I said, you know what? I'm done. The first 4. For one thing, he didn't understand the history of Israel. And most people don't.
Did you convince him that those weren't contradictions, or did you just satisfy yourself that they weren't?
I convinced. He didn't have a reply, and he was shooting off his mouth for days.
So, but I mean, do you think he came away thinking, "Oh, he's right; those aren't contradictions"?
I think it would take a lot more talking, and like I said, in the beginning, a person convinced against his will is of the same opinion. Still, you know. Okay. To me, I'm not.
So you were satisfied that they weren't contradictions, but again, you're not a wholly inspired person, also. So I'm not sure whether to treat that as important.
Well, Steve, I had a Steve. Before you go on, I just had a small question. Listening to what you've been saying and saying that you are critical thinking, that you've all the time you dig deep for the truth. When you were doing so, did you already have the idea in mind that the Bible that you were digging into was true? Like, did you already have that mindset about the book, or did you actually enter into it thinking that it could possibly be false? Did you actually have that that thought process in going over that?
Years ago, when I looked at evolution, I probably about 15 years ago, I thought of that and dug into that, and I found out that there was no contradiction with science. But let me, can I elaborate a little on something?
Well, if you could just, if you could focus on that question. What I'm trying to get at is you're saying that you're investing a lot into finding the truth, and that you're looking, beneath the surface reading of the text in order to get the true meaning. But it seems as if that you have a lot of assumptions that that book is correct. And I'm not getting, did you actually start off with that premise, or did you actually start the process with the understanding that it possibly could be wrong?
I'll answer that, but I partially did with the evolution that I said, but I'll answer that after saying this. Jesus brought up something very interesting that we hear, and I believe atheists have distorted. He said, believe, believe, believe. It never says blind faith. I just showed you a verse that said prove all things. And, well, anyway, so he said, believe, believe, believe. And I thought, well, why did he keep saying that, where we're supposed to be critical thinkers? And I looked a little deeper, and I realized that he's saying that because if you don't at least think something might have a little merit, you won't take it seriously. And then you dig to find the truth. So if you're going to just say, if you're just going to scoff right off the bat and say, this is nonsense. I've heard my friends tell me contradictions. I want to believe it's nonsense. You're not going to give it an honest assessment. You're just not.
I mean, you don't have to think that it's necessarily false or that it has no merit, but did you actually honestly consider the possibility that this book may be wrong? The reason that I'm bringing this up in that way is because just today I was at the Lackland Air Force Base, and we asked the trainees to identify where they come from, what religious system that they adhere to. And, we have Norse followers, we have Luciferians, we have Baha'i, we have Native American religions. We have all of these sets that have their own literature, that have their own books, some that are wildly different from others. And the fact is, they hold their books to be true as well. That's their interpretation, the same way that you do. So what I'm saying is, from my perspective, you're saying that your book, the one that you follow, is true. They're claiming, well, theirs is true as well. What I'm saying is, how do I, as an objective observer, differentiate which one of your texts are true if you are using a lot of the same justifications that they would use?
That's a very good question. And to me, it's the same question as there's 100, 36, 106, whatever it is, different denominations out there of confusion. But here's the key. The Bible claims to be the only one true God of the world, whatever, the universe, and that the other religions are pagan religions and false. Now, I happen to think that if one digs into it, and gives it an honest assessment, and believes it has some merit, not just to disprove it and say, and maybe ask questions. I couldn't get away with it without asking questions. If I thought I was all that and just sat down with the Bible and tried to figure out everything on my own, I'd totally fumble. I had to ask questions.
I think
people are too proud to ask questions.
I think what Phil is getting at, though, is that you may be asking questions, but you are going in with a mindset of trying to shoehorn the answers you find into something you've already decided is true, and everything has to point back to the Bible being correct.
I know what you're saying.
Right.
But here's the thing. Christ said, "My sheep know me, and they hear my voice." That's metaphorically here, not here with audible decibels, but they understand. And the Bible uses a lot of metaphor, a lot of poem, and
everyone.
it uses Hebraic poetry. It uses parables. It uses metaphors. And I personally think, from what I've learned in my journey, I've had a very unique experience. About 7 years ago, there was this radio broadcast called The Voice of Reason Radio. And this guy was on there. He was the most common sense, what do they call it, common horse sense thinker you'd ever hear in your life. And that just a Southern mentality. And he was saying stuff, and it wasn't even his theology that caught my attention. He was saying stuff like, folks, if you're not willing to be wrong and admit you're wrong, you're never going to be right. And, translations are not fully inspired. The Bible never said they were. It's your original languages. You have to dig into it. You have to see what the Greek and Hebrew were.
Right.
He's challenging everything.
Yeah, but regardless of how the translations are, I'm not starting with any predisposition to assume that the Bible is right about anything.
Right.
So,
and that's
what would convince me otherwise?
So, can I just finish this real quick? So he was going to come out with something called the Christian Mythbuster series. He had debunked a lot of these things, and he had an unexpected death in 2011. And I was a real ardent believer and supporter of what he was talking about, because he would always say, the sleeping giant of Christianity is about to awake. It's going to make the Great Awakening look like a mild disagreement and all this other stuff. Then he had an unexpected heart attack in his late 50s. So I called his wife after he died, and I said, Anne Marie, what's going to happen to these things now? John started this Christian Mythbuster series. These finds are amazing.
I hate to cut you off, but I feel like you're just using our show as an opportunity to witness, and that's not the way these conversations normally go. I mean, we're gonna have a back and forth discussion. I'm not sure. I just want to sit and wait for you to finish this whole story about how you heard some guy on Christian radio who used to not agree with you, and now he does agree with you, and so that somehow proves that you're right.
Yeah, but my focus of my original question, Steve, was the way that you were coming at it. You put it seems as if you put a high threshold on finding truth and actually working for it, rather than just reading on the surface. But what I was trying to get at is why would yours? Let me see the way to phrase this. How can I look at your belief and differentiate it from someone else who holds a differing belief that's completely different, whether they have a different God set or multiple gods or one or none at all, how can I differentiate which one is actually true? Like what is the best methods that you can let me know how to go about this? Because you haven't really presented anything as far it's basically your personal experience. I haven't heard anything that could really let me differentiate which one is actually true or not.
Mm-hmm.
I will answer that, but I had one more sentence this is very important.
Okay.
And she said to me, Steve, you're the answer to my prayers. So I started the Christian Mythbuster series, and I've done a few books. Now, regarding what you're saying is, the easiest answer is the proof is in the pudding. You read it, you see if there's proper hermeneutics. You look at exegesis, or is it eisegesis, which is just the opposite.
Wait a minute. You can't just look at a book and decide that because it's internally consistent, it actually happened. I mean, there's a new 50 Shades of Grey. There's a new 50 Shades of Grey movie out this weekend. I would imagine that everything in the movie is, there are maybe no major continuity errors, but that doesn't mean that these people exist.
Okay, well, can I give you one? For instance, most Christians and atheists assume that Adam is assumed to be the first human.
Wait, I'm sorry?
Most Christians and atheists assume that Adam is the first human being in the Bible.
In the story, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
It says Genesis 2:5 has God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground.
Okay.
Well, what I've discovered is other people's pre-Adamic groups become apparent the more you examine the Genesis account. Creationists, in their attempt to make the Adam the first father of humanity, use that above quote and one basis for argument because that's all they've heard. Now, but that's not what the Bible says. That was my first message before I got on, is that the Bible's true. It's just what you've heard and assumed about it that it's not.
So what is the answer? And I have a follow-up question. How did you find out?
I found, okay, well, can I answer the second one first?
Sure. Okay.
By studying and seeing what the text.
By studying what? The Bible?
Well, that's the text in question. That's the source.
Okay.
We have.
You do understand where we're coming from, though, right? I mean, you're telling us all these things you read about what the Bible really says, but even if you convinced us that the Bible really said something different than what we thought it did, it wouldn't make that much of a difference because we don't have an assumption going in that anything the Bible says is accurate or useful.
Or that we should hold that book higher over other religions, the thousands
over
of
50
other
Shades of Grey.
Wow. Well, I happen to think that what's the expression? Like they say, a leopard usually shows its colors. Well, a Christian will show their fruits, or a Christian, and people deny this as well. But I think it's kind of hard to deny America's Christian heritage, which became the greatest superpower in the world. But I'd rather just answer
I'm
this
going to
now.
deny that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, clearly these references of different people in the Bible point to something beyond members of the animal kingdom. I'm just trying to look at my notes here.
But I also know some very nice, friendly, charming, and influential people who are, let's say, Mormon. That doesn't mean I think that Mormonism is correct. The fruits of their work don't necessarily mean that they don't believe some things that aren't wildly out of left field. And I assume you don't think Mormonism is correct.
Okay, fair enough. Now I want to show you something you've probably never seen. The Bible neither. You look at Genesis. In Genesis 2:7, it says man became. So what was he before he became? And then you look at God fashioned the soil man. There's a different translation. I happen to like the concordant literal version. He fashioned the soil man. He would now call Adam and breathed his own breath, spirit animation of the mind into his nostrils. And, you look at Hebrew and Greek lexicons, and, they do help you out along the way. and Adam became a prophetic living soul. So, I found that Genesis is teaching the beginning of prophecy. Adam was to be a light bearer to the nations, just like the following heritage. Then it was Abraham.
Right.
Then it was David. Then it was Jesus Christ.
I'm glad you got so much linguistic education out of this, but I mean, I'm telling you again that we don't really care that much what the Bible says without some other reason to believe that any of it is accurate.
Okay, through this digging, through this journey, this is a very unique experience I've learned. But someone would have to decide for themselves. I want everyone to think for themselves. I don't. There's enough brainwashing going on already today. I don't tell anyone what to believe. But through this journey, I have learned that the Bible shows forgeries of itself. It shows these other religions to be forgeries of the Bible. Once you dig and find out what it really means, like there's no eternal hellfire. There's no, these words. They take
found
words
something
like,
we agree on.
They take words, but most atheists think the Bible teaches eternal hellfire. Most Christians do, I would dare to say. So, there's a lot of assumption going on here. And, if you take the Greek eonias for that's translated forever and the Hebrew olam, they're not words forever. They're to the age. Look at the literal version. So what does that mean? People burn to the age? No, it meant during the coming judgment, they would burn to the age. Like when Jesus Christ prophesied, not one stone would be left upon another when they asked what the sign of his coming would be in AD 70. It started in AD 70, and that was the sign. It begins the day of the Lord. He said that it would happen within their generation. So, Christians are so deluded, they're looking today for Christ to return. They're looking for things that happened 2,000 years ago, and the writing was on the wall, and he said not one would be standing here. I mean, some would be standing here before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom, taste of death. Okay. So, he was telling them right there, it was about to happen. Revelation, things soon to come to pass. Now,
it's still a very interesting story. Well, or not all that interesting, but
so I mean, if you delude and confuse enough passages, then it's going to look like it's something false.
I'm feeling like this conversation is just going to stay really one-sided, and I'm not getting very much out of it.
Yeah, because
I feel like we're trying to say why this stuff isn't landing home with us, and you're just ignoring us and continuing to say the thing.
I'm trying to answer. I'm only human.
It's not working.
I got you. But what you've been giving are more details of the story and your analysis of different components of the story in the book. And what we're saying is, rather than giving us additional components of the story, different verses, and your interpretation of those verses, what we're asking for is some way to substantiate the claims that the book is true itself. Like, why should we be paying attention to this book? But then when we ask that, you go back into more verses, going into more analysis of what you've seen in the Bible over time, not necessarily attacking the claim of, is the Bible true in and of itself? Right now, you haven't done anything in regards to that front, so we're kind of left in the same place that we started off.
Well, can I give you a little something on why the Bible teaches Adam is not the first man? In 1 Corinthians,
I don't care what the Bible teaches.
Right, I don't think it would be beneficial to the show or the audience if we can't get past if we can't get past the initial portion of is it actually true in the first place. Then once we substantiate that fact, then you can go into your stories or the different intricacies all you want to. But we need to start from the initial premise.
What would it take to prove that it is true in the first place? I mean,
I have no idea. You're the one presenting the claim that it is true. Right.
Well,
therefore.
I mean, it would take a lot because to start with, the Bible indicates, just at face value, an order in which things were created that doesn't make any sense compared to modern science. For one thing, it says that the sun was created after plants. So
that's assuming that Genesis 1 is talking about the creation of our physical universe. That's not what it's talking about.
So apparently it's very obscure, and it doesn't actually mean the things that it appears to say.
No,
and
here's the key. here's the key: you got to let it interpret itself, just like any ancient text. It's only
Books
fair.
books don't interpret themselves. Interpretation is done through people's minds. Like the
Right, but
yeah.
okay, can I just give you a quick example? You let heaven and earth define it.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, this is. I mean,
I'm not sure if it's
Heaven
going
and
to
earth
help
in
anything
Scripture.
on its
now,
own. Yeah.
okay,
Just call that.
okay. Well, people are happy with that decision. All right,
I thought they were enjoying it out there. That's what I thought.
right. Yeah, I mean, we got to put a time limit on
Yeah,
how
just-
much of the show one person can take.